Find your topic. Retrieve your first article that you've already started. Retrieve your half sheet of paper that you've written down your answers to, and open up another tab going to the Google Doc where you're typing your answers to the questions that are on the half sheet. I've just given you multiple assigned tasks. Can you do all of those assigned tasks? You can do it. Cora's here. Hey, does anyone want chocolate? Only $397 more.
This is my favorite thing.
Oh, yeah.
AJ's good for it.
I would be if I had something that wasn't 5s or 10s or 20s.
I have change.
Yeah.
What do you want?
I'll get Reese's. I'll get 4.
4 Reese's.
Actually, what else do you have?
Kit Kats and Hershey's.
Yeah.
Fast.
Bro, it's not just chocolate. You got chocolate. You got nuts. You got that nougat. Oh, and that caramel. Bro, Snickers is the best candy bar. Do not at me.
You printed off some? I like doing that too.
No, I lost it.
You lost what?
Right.
Oh, you know.
Okay, they're good, right? But M&M's don't count. It's just
Anyone else
candy
need another
bar.
half sheet?
No, you have the candy bar is like Kit Kat. It's like it has to be a bar. M&M's are like the universal
Those
good.
ones get all over your fingers.
You mean you have everything
M&M's
in one
melting in my
group?
mouth.
Yeah, I know they're not enough every day, and that's literally the slogan.
Yeah, what we're working on now is 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Answering these things. But I'm going to help you, right? I do not want this. Ultimately, it's going to be a 6-paragraph paper. But I want you to spend time on it right here. In this room. In this building is where you're going to be writing this paper. Unless you simply choose not to. But then that's on you. You're the one working on it Thursday night because it's due Friday whenever this thing is due. That was your choice, okay? I wouldn't make that choice, and you don't have to either, okay? So as I recall, my article of choice was lowering the voting age. Like I'm one of you. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, and then you're going to do the same with your article. Oakley dokley. Okay. Is anyone talented today? Do we have any talented people today?
I'm talented every day.
Yes, I know, but today especially, around 2 o'clock, are you talented?
Depends.
Still in motion? Things are still in motion? You don't know what I'm talking about.
The
talent
There's a talent show today.
Oh, there
Is
it
anyone talented? Do we have any like people who could juggle?
I can jump.
This was a number of years ago, probably 15 years ago. This was there was a talent show, right? And this kid comes out in a wheelchair with a red clown nose and starts doing wheelies. And after about a minute of him doing wheelies, I leaned over to the teacher sitting next to me and I say to him, I think this is the talent this guy's displaying. Like, that's what he thinks the talent show is. And the other guy's like, nah, that can't be. He's gonna do something else, right? Another minute, he's just doing wheelies back and forth. And I'm like, no, I think he thinks this is talent. Nah. Finally, the teacher like escorted him off the stage. There were like 3 people. It was pretty funny.
You know, I thought maybe at the end he would like fall backwards and then
No.
he didn't fall backwards and go like with the clown nose or something.
No.
He like bounced.
The other one that was funny was our last state championship football team. The guy that drew George Washington as he looks right now. That's what he said when he gave me that picture. Like, here's a portrait of George Washington now.
Yeah.
Anyway, good running back. He was into magic. And our principal was not there that day. So for the talent show, not there that day. So And neither was the athletic director. So the person in charge was the senior counselor, who's not here anymore. He's off teaching somewhere else. And anyway, his act was that he was going to get in a barrel full of water and have volunteers lock it, and he was going to escape, right? And he was explaining all this, and then he's standing in the barrel of water, and he's telling people, all right, lock me in. And I'm sitting there like, this cannot be right. There is no way we are going to allow this to happen. And he starts ducking up, and I look over at the person in charge, and he's like this. Oh boy, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm looking at him like, you have to stop this, right? You cannot allow this to happen. And finally, I think Mr. Scheffel walked on. Any of you had Scheffel? So he doesn't walk, he kind of strolls. And he's like, nah.
But didn't they have to audition and they still let
Yeah, I don't get it. It was amazing. Like, so instead, here's what he did instead. He took light bulbs, covered them with paper towels, broke them, and ate it. And that was his talent, which I thought was an odd talent. Eat glass. You're very talented. You can eat
This is
glass.
my talent. This is my lunch.
It was crunchy. We were listening to him chew.
ASMR. That was his talent. Let's go.
All right. Have you succeeded? Have you opened up 2 different tabs? Oh, get a computer. Peter. Yeah. Oh, have you? Yes, you've opened up 2 different tabs.
Yep.
One is the SIRS article itself, so I have to find mine. Mine's on voting. So you go to view all issues. Have you done this? Find your article. There's my
glass. Like,
voting
does
age.
your body even digest that?
And then pick the first article arguing yes. Have that open. And then have a second tab open to a Google Doc. You've already answered questions 1 through 7. Yes, sir.
It says like whenever I go into my article, it says loaning or like there was an issue for like.
Is it like the cookies? Okay, run to Mr. Barry.
I was doing good here.
Maybe kind of listen to me as we're going so that you know what to do. All right, our goal is to finish questions 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 in class today. Okay, so I'm doing this one. Number 8, quote you'll use. All right, well, I think we kind of found it. The quote I'm going to use, the first quote I'm going to use is this first one. Young people, blah, 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 all the way to protest. And that's the quote I'm going to use. Okay, so I write that word for word. And then number 9 is sort of, well, what's the quote saying? What's the saying? And what it's saying is that young people are intelligent enough to be able to vote. That's the argument being made. Now, it doesn't say that up here, but what I do is I look at the quote and say to myself, what is the argument being made here? The argument being made is that they are just as intelligent at 16 as anyone else. So that's what I type. I got that from my brain. I got that up here. The answer to number 9 is not on the article. It's in your head. You have to find a quote. And my suggestion is just read paragraph per paragraph. And after you read a paragraph, just say to yourself, what is the argument being made here? And it's quite possible that no argument is being made. This ability that you are right now practicing, your ability to read a paragraph and say, what is being said here, is an important skill. It's your ability to interpret text. Can you look at a paragraph and say what's being argued here? Okay, so that would be the answer to number 9. And now number 10, it says specific example. In other words, prove it. Prove, in my case, prove that 16-year-olds are just as smart. Now, for this answer, it's important that you're listening to me right now. For the answer to number 11, and then you'll notice that number 12 is another example. You need to come up with 2 examples per argument. Where are you going to get those? Where are you going to find them? Okay, did you have an answer?
Other document.
You might find them in another document. That's an answer. Anybody else? Where else might I find examples to prove the argument being made in paragraph number 1.
In other articles.
That's what he just said. Yes,
I mean, you could probably use your knowledge to say something like,
very good. Come up with a hypothetical example. You are smart people, right? You think about your life. You people are this age. Find an example in your life of intelligent 16-year-olds. Great. Anywhere else? You haven't found the most obvious answer. Yes?
you could say something like, or you could Google it, right?
Yes, you can Google it. Very good. You're still making your life harder than it needs to be. Read the article. I bet there's an example in here. An example where 16-year-olds are smart. And it's true. There are. Because if I drag down, I read this article a little bit before. It says here that by age 16, this paragraph argues that something called cold cognition is developed by the time you're 16. Cold cognition is the example, right? So that's what I would write as the number 10, the specific example of intelligence being developed by age 16. I would write, because I read the whole article, I read and learned about this thing called cold cognition. If you're curious what cold cognition is your ability to think in your calm. And studies show that when you're calm, you 16-year-olds, you are as intelligent as anyone else. The problem is when this other thing called hot cognition occurs. It's when you become emotional, then you're morons. But when you're voting, you're calm, right? You're not jacked up.
I don't know about that.
Maybe you are slightly. When you lose your mind is when a shooter comes into a building. Now you've lost your mind and the adults need to sort of tell you what to do. But in the calmness of a voting booth, you're fine. Okay? So example number 1 would be me talking about something called cold cognition. Example number 2 might be another thing that I've just researched on my own. I Googled evidence of smart 16-year-olds. Great. Okay. And I put that as the answer to number 11. Okay. Are there any questions that any of you have from questions 1 through 11? I'm going to save 12 for a second here. We get 1 through 11 because I'm going to give you time in class. Your job is to read your first article and see if you can answer questions 1 through 11. Okay.
Wait, so for 10 and 11, we just have a specific example?
Specific example.
We just have another example?
Another example. Yep. I'll give you another example of what I'm talking about. Later on in the same article, it argues that the reason we should have the voting age lowered to age 16 is because other countries do. Okay, here's the quote. In addition to the scientific case for lowering the voting age, there's also a civic argument. Consider the dozen or so countries like Argentina, Austria, Brazil, and Nicaragua that allow people to vote in national, state, or local elections. In such countries, voter turnout is significantly higher than it is among younger adults. Okay, now that paragraph has in it 1 quote and 4 examples. Do you see it? Who can help me? What if this was your topic? Look at this paragraph, just this paragraph. Where would the quote be? Now let me give you a clue. A quote is a sentence that makes the argument, but you don't want specific examples in it necessarily. I do agree that there's no specific example here, and it's talking about a civic argument. The only problem with that first sentence is it's not really specific. I have a very important argument I'm going to make to you. That's all it's saying. Okay? How about that last sentence? Voter turnout among 16 and 17-year-olds is higher. There's the quote. All right. Now, where are the examples? Argentina, Austria, Brazil, Nicaragua. Next paragraph, more examples. Did you know that there are towns out west where 16 and 17-year-olds can vote? Not for president, but for other things, local elections. and they're more likely to vote. Okay? That's an example. The example is, the argument is voter turnout is higher. Well, prove it. Argentina, Austria, Brazil, and Nicaragua are pieces of evidence. Maryland is evidence. Question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, it would kind of make sense to change the voting age because most 16 and 17-year-olds take civics during those years. So
Very good. That's a great example. That would be an example. Very good. Understand, the examples they're everywhere. They're in your head. They're on Google. They're in the article. They're in other articles. In this paper that you will ultimately have to write, you need 4 quotes. 2 arguments for, 2 arguments against. That's 4 quotes. Is it possible that you'll get both quotes arguing? Could I find both quotes arguing in favor of lowering the voter age in one article? Of course. I already told you 2 arguments. One is you're smart enough, and 2 is other countries do it. I found them both in the same article. How many articles are available to you on this website? 6. If you get 2 quotes from one and 2 quotes from the other, that leaves 4 articles where you might find some examples proving the argument being made. Okay? Don't get yourself overwhelmed. All I want you to do is read one article, the first one. Okay? Which leaves number 12. Synthesis example. Does anyone know what it is? Okay. I'm telling you, tell me that we should allow 16-year-olds to vote because other countries do. Very good. Now, can you think of another situation where the US doesn't do it, but other countries do it? Not voting. Free health care. And do you think that's a good idea? Great. That's synthesis. Synthesis is where the same argument is being made in a different situation. Right? We should allow 16-year-olds to vote because other countries allow 16-year-olds to vote. That's sort of like, in this case, healthcare. Other countries allow healthcare, and as a result, the US should allow healthcare. See, the same argument's being made. We should do X because other countries do X. Think about your topic. Whatever your topic is. AJ, give me your topic. What's your topic?
Are free trade agreements beneficial?
Are free trade agreements beneficial? Okay. You're arguing, I assume you're reading one article that is arguing yes. Okay. And you might find in there that free trade prevents war. That's an argument. Did you know that this is statistically true? That if you're trading with country X, you probably aren't going to go to war against country X, right? You want trade. Now, you might think, all right, so countries that trade don't engage in war, and that's a good thing. Is there anything else that might be also true? It sort of makes the same argument, but it's in a different situation, right? So how many of you walk these things called hallways? Yep, you all walk in the hallways. All right. Are you more likely to get in a fight with a friend of yours or some strange kid that bumped into you? If your friend bumped into you accidentally, you were walking by each other and you bumped into each other, will you turn around and deck the kid? Or just say, hey, Billy. Okay. But a stranger walks into you, right? Maybe even a freshman. Ugh. Why do they exist? Right? Wouldn't it be more likely that you are confrontational with that kid? Right? Because you don't know, because you don't engage with them. That's synthesis. Did you see? I'm saying countries are like people. People that know each other, engage with each other, don't fight each other. Kids that walk into each other but don't know each other are more likely to confront each other. That's synthesis. And it's a skill. So I totally understand if you're sitting there with number 12 and you're like, I don't know what to do here. I need help. Well, here I am. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I'm here to help. Okay? I'm here to help you with number 12. The good news for you is, let's say that you read an article, the whole article, and you cannot think of it. You cannot think of synthesis. Don't panic. In your whole paper, you only need one example of synthesis total. So of the 4 articles you'll have to read, you only need one synthesis. One. Just one. Just one. Over. Okay. I'm going to let you work for about 10 minutes or so. Please call me over if you're stuck. I'd be happy to help you. And when the big hand is on the 2, I want to start talking again about stuff, and I want some of you to do your 1 to 2 minute report. Remember that was due today. Take that back, Jake. Take that back. Take it back. Unsay what you said.
Say it backwards.
Say tau.
No.
Very good.